be here. So recording in progress. So let's call the meeting to order. It's a Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. It's 6 p.m. or thereabouts. And let's see, who have we got present? We have Chuck Gilbert, we have Jennifer Field, we have Brent Pawlowski, we have Dave Livesey. And we have Charlene, whose last name I don't know. Really.
Carol.
I mean, Carol. Carol is not hard. Rachel is here, Rachel Purcell, Ian McNabb, and myself. And we have Dave Hackelman online.
Hello.
Good to
Can
see
you hear
you.
me okay?
Yes, we can. Let's see. Changes to the agenda, we have none. Announcements. So I've been gently reminded that limiting discussion committee members only may streamline our proceedings. So I will be following the guidance at this meeting. So nothing personal, but if you're not on the committee, I will generally not be recognizing you to speak. We don't have a lot of public participation today. I'm guessing because the candidate fair is going on right now. The League of Women Voters, I think. But that is what it is. Okay, so this committee has its regular meetings on the second Wednesday of the month at this time, 6 p.m. And it will be meeting monthly through the end of this year. Again, that's second Wednesdays of the month, 6 p.m. for our regular meetings. And so I have an important note for everyone, really. The Disposal Site Advisory Committee is not in the decision-making loop when it comes to the application by Republic Services to expand the landfill. What that means, practically speaking, is that if you give testimony to us about the expansion application, it won't be heard by the actual decision makers. We're happy to hear ourselves and any and all expressions of concern about landfill operations, but you'll have to give it again before each deciding body for them to consider it. The deciding bodies are in order NRAC, then the Planning Commission, then the Board of Commissioners. NRAC reviews the application and decides whether or not to recommend approval to the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners. The Planning Commission decides on the application based on its qualitative criteria. The Board of Commissioners decide on any appeal of the Planning Commission's decision using its qualitative criteria. So just a note for everyone. A note about NRAC. County staff stated earlier that NRAC would have no public comment period, which I find odd. So the public should be aware that might complicate your ability to comment to NRAC about the landfill. And lastly, Matthew Rutgers has let me know that he has an inescapable standing commitment on second Wednesdays of the month. And so it looks like he will be unable to continue with DSAC. I want to acknowledge his public orientation in this. He expressed how important it is for an advisory group such as us to have an established regular schedule so the public doesn't have to chase the committee, quote unquote, in his words. So my thanks to Matthew, and we wish him well. Okay, end of announcements then. So we can move to agenda item 2A, which is public comment. Your comments welcome. Each commenter generally limited to 3 minutes. Committee members may ask presenters follow-up questions if they choose. DSAC's mission is to promote dialogue between the public and the landfill. So I would like to use this format. Each member of the public can ask one question of the committee. Oftentimes that goes to you, Ian, as our Republic representative. You may answer or not, he may answer or not, and then the member of the public can comment on the answer. So is that clear? Public comment may end with a question. The committee or Ian may respond, public comment on his response, and then it goes up to the committee at large if there are follow-up questions. So again, the idea is to promote dialogue. Okay, so let's take public comments from people in the room first. Are there any? There's not. Do we have a public comment online? Bailey, can you find out?
I do see it here.
Okay, Mark Yeager, it looks like.
Okay. And Mark, if you can hear us, if you can unmute yourself.
I got it. Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, members of the Disposal Site Advisory Committee. My name is Mark Yeager and I'm a Benton County resident. And I wanted to take this opportunity to let the public and DSAC be aware that Republic Services or Valley Landfills has begun construction of a new landfill expansion into the former quarry site. Well, Chapter 77 of the Benton County Code requires a conditional use permit for this action. 77.305 states that any proposal to expand the area approved for landfill within the landfill site zone is allowed by conditional use permit approved by the Planning Commission. The Benton County Talks Trash process, the work group process, and its report had several findings and recommendations regarding the legality of moving into the quarry site for landfill garbage disposal without a conditional use permit. The county has ignored all of those discussions. They have not followed up on any of the recommendations of the Benton County Talks Trash with regard to expansion into the quarry, and are allowing Republic to proceed, the county has maintained that no conditional use permit is required. They have not notified the public of this landfill expansion. And the result will be the development of a new landfill area without any land use conditions. The Benton County Talks Trash Work Group report identified that the expansion into the quarry area, if approved, would provide 14 to 16 years of additional capacity for the landfill site. Since this expansion is proceeding, there is no need now for a new landfill to be built south of the Coffin Butte Road area. So a question for the members of DSAC is, I'm curious as to whether or not you are aware that the expansion into the quarry is now taking place, and if you have any comments on that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark. So we certainly have some time in the public comment period. So Mark's question, first of all, is, Ian, I presume that maybe you should comment on what's going on.
Sure. So we've been very transparent that we were constructing a cell in the quarry area this year. We've talked about that in multiple public meetings and open houses, so that's not a secret.
Okay. Were any of the committee members aware that that was happening?
I was aware it was happening. I've heard about that there was a race to extract mine the aggregate out of there to create volumetric room for more waste.
Okay.
Exchange one for the other is my understanding.
Is the work group's finding that the quarry would extend operation of 14 to 16 years, correct?
I don't recall exactly because I wasn't part of the legal subcommittee, but the legal subcommittee did discuss it extensively with our input, county input, and there was also a third-party land use attorney hired by the county and reached findings on it that it was part of the existing landfill footprint. But you'd have to go back and review that document. I haven't looked at it in quite some time.
Does that document also talk about the capacity of the quarry area? Or?
I don't recall.
Okay.
That was probably a couple of years ago, the last time we touched it.
Okay.
I was on the Benton County Talks Trash, and there was two subcommittees. One was the CUP committee, and then there was the legal committee, and the CUP was reviewing all the conditional use permits, but the legal department was referred to, and they stated that cell 6 was within the area already with EPAs, that it was could be expanded into. So there was a cordial difference of opinion between the legal committee and
The land use subcommittee.
yeah, but it's I believe it's within a permitted area. So who has control over that is really EPA.
DEQ maybe?
Or Oregon DEQ, excuse me. Yeah.
So I think one of the points that Mark has made, and I remember this back from BCTT times, is that first of all, there is no document that actually defines that area. So I think there are documents that refer to earlier documents. But when you actually go back there, some of those documents date before the time that the quarry was excavated. So basically there is no hole for the quarry. And so there is no, line drawn. There was no place to put the garbage at that time.
On cell 6? Or?
Yeah, where cell 6 is now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of these situations where there is, there's references to documents, but there aren't actually the documents themselves anymore. But I think one of the things that come forward is that, and Mark just talked about this, is that somehow the idea that you can use that area has come forward, but none of the land use conditions that were imposed at the time on that area have come forward as well. So Mark talked about that fact that, where are the conditions of use from that time? Somehow only the permission to use that space came forward, and everything else kind of got sloughed off along the way. So the situation is complicated as I understand it, but that would be a concern of mine, and that certainly is a concern, for the public about what about the land use conditions that were put on that space back then.
Well, if I'm understanding the permit process with Oregon DEQ, is that before they apply the permit, they have certain conditions that comes from Benton County, a letter that conditional use permit is agreeable. I don't know if they have that on record, but before they issue a permit, there has to be quite a few steps with the geography, maps, and everything associated with that. So I'm assuming in the scheme of things that the hierarchy is the Oregon DEQ, and if they granted a permit, then cell 6 is within that fill area.
But we're talking about the county land use approval for that area. So we're not talking about Oregon DEQ.
Well, yes, but you got to look at the hierarchy here, because Oregon DEQ regulates it under the permit process of granting that's within harmony with Benton County.
No, I don't think that's correct. I don't think that Oregon DEQ has anything to do with county land use.
No, I didn't say that. I said that for their permit process to grant that, there's usually a letter in their permitting process that comes from the county that a conditional use permit has been processed. So I don't know where the breakdown is. In other words, during that time, DEQ offered to permit that should have had those elements in it.
Well, I think both of us have wandered so far out onto the thin ice of things we don't know that I'm not certain. The problem is that there is no document anyone can point to that says, you know, that the space can be used.
No, I understand, but you had two opinions in these, Benton County Talks Trash, and I think that was the legal question they were wondering about, I think there, so you would really have to ask them.
Right. So, are there any other discussion points on this particular item? Do we have an action item that we want to pursue? Yeah.
Well, I think it might be nice to get some clarity from the county as to what the process was. So I don't know if that's somebody within the planning commission or somewhere. Ian, do you know?
Well, I mean, I might suggest, I mean, if that's something you want to look into, I mean, the Benton County Talks Trash spent hundreds and hundreds of hours looking at this. And I mean, I might suggest just starting looking at that portion of the report, if
Yeah.
that's something you're interested in, because there's a lot of information already been compiled by the county and others.
Mhm.
So I would second that. I think that's a good place to start because there are findings and recommendations by the various committees, and they have, those are, you know, facts that they found and also recommendations that they made to the Board of Commissioners. And Mark was saying that, you know, that there are recommendations in there for the commissioners to follow up on this. The question is whether we want to take a look at that, given that the situation is developing right now. It is indeed certainly within the purview of the committee, being an operation of the landfill.
I mean, the cell was designed and approved by DEQ, and full transparency, construction's almost complete.
Yeah, I don't think the issue is whether, you know, the DEQ approval, it's really the county land use approval. That's the question.
And I would just suggest reading the legal subcommittee's
Yeah.
report portion.
Okay. I am curious, so maybe I'll read up on that report between now and the next meeting, and Chuck, I may have some questions for you when I'm going through it.
Yeah, I'll see if I can locate it quicker for you, and then I'll try to, if you don't mind, I'll direct it.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to spend hours looking for it. I just remember I can get into both of them there, and hopefully they did make a summation there.
Okay.
Ken, being the new guy, I can ask
Yeah.
dumb questions. So is there somebody at the county that is working with Republic on that expansion, and we could just pick up the phone and call them and say, is this consistent with what was talked about earlier in Benton County Talks Trash?
I don't know.
Well, the view of the cell 6 is that it wasn't an expansion, it's the construction of an existing portion of the land, or an existing permitted portion of the
So
landfill.
there's nobody at the county kind of that Republic's working with daily? Okay.
No.
Thanks, that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks, Rachel. Is anyone else engaged with this? I just want to, my heart goes out to David and Charlene. We've thrown you into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, we had the benefit of coming in with we got briefings and things like that, so
Oh, that's nice.
yeah. But ask all the questions you need.
We
got
have
a
a honeymoon
really big
period where we
packet.
can ask dumb questions then, so,
Yeah, for sure.
but I think we can both swim.
Believe me, your past to ask dumb questions does not expire at any time. At least mine doesn't.
Or did you two have, I missed the last meeting, I was out of town. Did you have a chance to introduce yourself, or did I miss that?
This is it. This is our
Can you
first
say a
This is
little
it.
bit then?
ever. You are
Oh,
here.
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, you're muted there. You might.
So
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So I'm sorry, Jennifer, before we do that, I just want to check with Bailey. Do we have any other public comment?
I see that Mark Yeager has his hand up, and beyond that, I don't see any other hands up.
Okay.
People can also chat, if they'd like to talk and all. monitoring the chat.
So does Mark have a follow-up question or comment?
No, thanks, Chair Eklund. I just wanted to follow up with the second part of Rachel's question, which was, does the quarry provide 14 to 16 years of additional capacity? And that information can also be found in the Benton County Tox Trash landfill site life section of the report. So you can go there to confirm, and I think that Ian will in fact agree, because this number was developed in collaboration with Republic Services. The 14 to 16 years of additional capacity once they move into the quarry is contingent upon them staying under the 1.1 million tons per year of garbage coming into the landfill. And so that's how that number was generated collaboratively with Republic Services. So moving into the quarry area adds an additional 14 to 16 years of life.
All right. So I think there's no more public comments.
May I comment?
Go ahead, David.
If I am of any use, I can also look at the stuff with you, Rachel.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for that. Okay, now we move on to our new members. Actually, if you could just say a few sentences about yourself.
Maybe we go around the table and.
Oh, yeah, okay. Why don't we go around the table, and why don't you start, Chuck?
Oh, okay, Chuck Gilbert. Just my background quick. I've worked on the railroad for about 30 years from here to Southern California. And then I worked for ODOT Rail, was a regulator there and so forth like that. So that hopefully I don't put a sour stomach to you. And then just between jobs, I worked at Forest Grove Disposal for a couple of years there too as a route planner. So I get lost in my backyard, but they gave me a planner's job so I could see the line. And that's about it in 25 words or less.
I'm Jennifer Field. I'm at Oregon State University. I'm a researcher, environmental chemist, and I specialize in PFAS and have actually done research on PFAS and landfill gas and leachate.
Brent Pulowski, lifelong resident of Benton County, engineer by trade.
Dave Livesey, I've lived in Benton County for 35 years out in the Lewisburg area and retired a couple of years ago after spending my career doing environmental consulting. So my background's in hydrogeology, degrees in geology and geological engineering.
I'm Ken Eklund. I'm a game and experience designer, and I live out in Soap Creek Valley.
Ian McNabb, I'm with Republic Services. I've been there since 2008.
I'm Rachel Purcell. I'm a science writer and a relative newcomer to Benton County. I've been in Corvallis for the last 3 years.
I'm Charlie Carroll. I'm a retired academic hospitalist from Good Sam, so I taught internal medicine to the residents that are there. And I came to this because I was interested in garbage, because garbage, we all make it and we have to do something with it. So it has a lot of environmental and health repercussions.
Okay, and I think you want to hear from me too. I'm David Hackelman. I'm a retired professor in the chemical engineering department after I retired from Hewlett Packard, and I'm an engineer and a chemist. I think that's, I went to Oregon State, got a degree in 73, and then I got an additional degree in chemistry from Carolina, Chapel Hill. And I've been living at my location right north of the landfill since 1981.
And then there's also John Morrell, right, who is not, he's traveling for this meeting.
Jeff. Murray.
Jeff.
It's Jeff.
Jeff Morrell. Darn it.
Close.
Not that close. Okay, very good. Let's move on to agenda item 3, which is edit and approve the committee minutes for our last meeting on September 19th. Does anyone have any comments?
Yeah, Chuck. Let's see, there was 2 absentees, but Member Field on the first meeting did a declaration that she wouldn't be there and stuff like that, so she should be granted also there under the other ones that had vacancy approval.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
You don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't just a no-show.
Yeah.
Let somebody know that, I think.
Oh, well, good note.
It was Bailey, I'm not sure.
So you got that, David? Okay, great. Any other comments on the minutes? Well, probably to no one's surprise, I have a few. So on page 2, there's the statement, any testimony regarding the expansion must be submitted to the decision-making body, the Benton County Planning Commission. The committee will hear concerns but cannot influence the official decision process. I think that should be changed to something which is a little bit closer to what was actually said. So my recommended rewrite of that is any testimony regarding the expansion must be submitted to the decision-making bodies to be considered by them. The committee hears concerns as per its function to report them to the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. Any comments on that? Let's see, on page 3, there's a comment under public testimony that time limit for public comment was invoked. That should just be deleted. On page 4, there's a statement. It was suggested that future reports provide more synthesis of comments and responses to avoid misrepresentation of concerns. I don't recall any suggestion like this, but I'll confess I don't understand exactly what that means either.
Ken, that was my suggestion, which was just that I think it was my suggestion. I mean, the report that we presented was basically just a big spreadsheet full of comments. And it seemed like we could have done like more analysis of the comments in our cover letter that we presented instead of just giving like a laundry list of hundreds of comments from the community.
Okay, I'm sorry. So analysis was the thing that I missed out on. Okay. So if we just say analysis instead of synthesis?
Sure, yeah.
Just helps me, probably. I'll probably be the only person helped by it, but that would be good. Let's see, on page 4, it says the near fire department. That should be the Adair Rural Fire Department. On page 5 and 6, regarding agenda item number 9, a note needs to be added, something like this. Although the staff presentation listed avenues that Benton County engages with the public, that Benton County uses to engage with the public, there were questions about which, if any, of these avenues were available for the committee to use, because there were some questions about, none of the avenues that you had listed had actually been successfully used by the committee to get its messages out. And so also on page 5/6, regarding agenda item number 9, I'd like to have a note added. The staff presentation did not address the question of how much outreach had been done or will be done to make the public aware of DSAC's restart and of its mission to promote dialogue about and gather public concerns about Coffin Butte landfill.
That doesn't sound accurate, but I mean, Billy did address that in his presentation, like what he'd done already. Also, sorry,
Okay,
these are the minutes, right? So we're not supposed to be commenting on what was presented. We're just supposed to say what was done. We're not supposed to comment on absences. So, but Bailey did talk about what he'd done to get the word out about the meetings already.
okay. Well, it's my recollection, I didn't go back to the recording, that was a critique of the presentation that I made at the time.
Oh, I see. So you wanted recorded that you made this critique at the
That's
time.
correct.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And then on page 6, I mean, I did find the thing, which I imagine was just left to see whether or not we were paying attention when we were reading the minutes. DSAC does not stand for Development Sustainability Advisory Committee. It stands for Disposal Site Advisory Committee. Thought you could slip that one by us, Bailey. And also the sentence, and the decision on November and December meetings remains open. I think that should be deleted because they're on the calendar. So I think we're going ahead with them now. So those are the changes I would like to see made to the minutes. Are there any other comments for the minutes?
I move to have vote to have the minutes accepted with the amendments that Ken outlined.
All right.
Revisions that Ken outlined.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, check on second. All in favor? Please raise your hand. I see David Huckleman with his hand up there. Thank you, David. All right. Minutes are approved with those. On to agenda item number 4, the election of the vice chair. So the office of vice chair is currently open. I think by the bylaws, the vice chair has one duty, which is to fill in for the chair if the chair is indisposed. And a note, we will be having elections again before the end of the year. I'm assuming that election will be for the chair only, but I'm sure if the vice chair wanted to open it up to have another election in a month or 2, that could be arranged. So does anyone have any questions? If not, do we have any nominations? Any discussion?
Well, I thought we had a nominating committee there with the results, did we not? Or those who wanted to or not?
Well, Bailey asked for a poll.
Yeah,
But, and we can integrate that into our workings however you like, but that was kind of I think Bailey wanted that for his own information.
okay. Well, can we make a motion to approve somebody?
Well, you can nominate someone.
Okay, I nominate Member Purcell.
All right. Let's see, I'm blanking now on the, does that have to be seconded or?
I think so, right?
Well, you would have to accept, right?
Well, it would have to be seconded first, but.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Oh, well, I would second that.
I'm open to it. I know Brent, you expressed interest in the vice chair position as well.
Right, but with my travel schedule, probably would be better to not take a leadership position.
All right. Are there other nominations? I quite understand why David L. and Charlene are like
Trying to figure out which way up is right now.
Yeah.
Maybe at a later time.
Okay, I don't want to prolong this then. Should we vote then on, we have the vice chair is indeed a vacant seat and Rachel's willing to fill it. Shall we vote on that? All in favor of our only candidate? I guess raise your hands. Looks to be pretty unanimous. David Hackman also says yes. Okay. Welcome, Rachel. Thank you for stepping forward to become our vice chair. So I had talked, at our last meeting about hoping that the vice chair would run the meetings instead of me, just because I have a feeling you would be better at doing it. So we can talk about that after the meeting if you like.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, I just want to know, I hadn't forgotten about that. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to agenda item number 5, which was the fire safety inquiry and recommendation to commissioners. Before we get into the inquiry itself, which is in the packet, David, could you answer a question for me? It just has to do with I don't understand how exactly this works. So if we do indeed have a recommendation for the commissioners, kind of what physically happens, can you just walk through the process about how that gets to the commissioners? I mean, does somebody, for example, on the committee present it? Can someone on the committee present it? Kind of what are our options, I guess?
I think the first step would be to send it to the county administrator, and then the county administrator would take it from there to present, would pass it along to the board. I think if the board had questions or would like actual presentation, then I imagine that someone would be invited, most likely you, the chair, would be invited to present to them. I'm guessing they would do that at the goal setting meeting.
Okay. So we kind of have that option of asking for a live presentation if we want to make it, or we can just send them the document.
I think it's okay to just send the document. They may have follow-up questions, in which case then someone would be invited to.
Oh, I see. Okay. So the normal procedure would be we send them the document and then they let us know if they have questions and how they would like to handle those questions.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Thank you for making that clear. So any discussion on this? And David H, feel free to weigh in, right? Because this is kind of like I said, you're the steward of the document.
Sure. Let me start off by saying I tried to put down what we had discussed, and I did my best at making an appraisal of what we understand, but I'm sure I might have missed something. And I did get a call back from the Adair Rural Fire Department head chief, and there is one slight difference that might be needed to be done, and that is that there evidently is an intermediate command level between the rural fire department and the fire marshal of the state that might be worth adding to people that might want to review things. And there may be things that are already being done that clearly I didn't put down here. And if I need to modify that in that way and the committee feels that way, I'm happy to make those changes.
Okay, great. So I have a couple of changes that I'd like to propose. But maybe before we do that, we should just talk about what is going to happen with this document once we're kind of done with this process. I mean, David, you've already proposed, some rewriting, if you will, because you've gained some more information. So the question is, what do we do? Does the committee want to see this document again? Are we going to be happy, do you think, at just like giving it to David for his final drafting? I know we should look at kind of what the changes are first, but I'm just kind of wondering what the mood of the committee is.
I feel like I want to know how many changes as a committee, we're hoping to see in the document before we figure out whether we want to see it again,
Okay,
right? If they're substantial enough, we probably would want to take another look.
okay.
But maybe, I mean, before we dive into it, maybe we can catch our new committee members up on what the purpose of this document is, or where it, like why we're doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
so basically, like there have been some fires on the landfill recently. And they have, I think there have been some that have occurred during operating hours. Was there one that was during operating hours recently?
Oh, I believe they were both after.
Okay, so,
Sorry, so this is kind of a point that I have about the document.
okay, well, maybe I can just like very quickly finish my
I'm
highly
sorry.
erroneous
Yes.
summary. And
Yes,
then,
go ahead.
but basically the fires occurred after hours. They were spotted there's no one on site on the landfill between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. to monitor things. So they were spotted by, I think, a passing motorist in one case, and somebody else saw one and they called it into the Adair Rural Fire District. So, so the question is like, is there a way for this to be done better? It is kind of like not ideal to have like, no monitoring. So, so this is a letter that David put together for the board to consider about what could be done differently, just kind of laying out the situation as it stands.
Thank you. I saw the letter at the packet.
Yeah. Did you hear all that, David? Do you have anything to add?
Well, I heard everything that was just said from, I didn't hear if anybody other than, there was one person speaking that I heard, and I heard that, yes.
That was me, Rachel. I was just trying to catch
Yeah.
our numbers up.
Yeah, I heard Rachel. I didn't hear any other comments.
Right. So for David's and also for the recording of this meeting, if people can get a little closer to the microphones which are sitting on the desk there, they drop off quite quickly when the sound does indeed. So, okay, so so I have a suggested change to the letter, and it has to do with condition 1 in the letter, and it has to do with whether or not the fires started after hours or not. So to backtrack some, one of the fires occurred up on the working face of the landfill, so up at the top of the mound. And it was indeed a fire which was what they call a hot load. So the garbage had started smoldering when it came out of the delivery truck and went in to the landfill. And so that happened, of course, while the landfill was in operation. And so the landfill operators took action to remove the smoldering part, which they have an isolation area. They put it in the isolation area. They covered it with dirt, and all that was fine. The problem was they didn't get the entire thing. So after they left, then it restarted, and it eventually caught some of the equipment on fire, and it raised a plume of smoke, which was spotted by a motorist on 99W and called in. And so Adair Rural came, and Republic responded also, and they extinguished the fire up there. So I don't know exactly how you classify that fire. Did it start after hours, or did it start during working hours? I mean, I would say that the problem was the hot load, and then the problem was compounded by the fact that the hot load was not put out. And so, in the document, under condition 1, the document says that there haven't been any incidents in working hours, and so I don't think that we should put it that way.
Okay, I thought I heard that there was a working hours fire that was, or more than one, that was dealt with no interface from the fire department. And I don't know how you call this one, whether, I think it would be called an after-hours fire because it erupted after hours, even though it was in the landfill for that second one.
Right. There were indeed other incidents that the Republic representatives talked about where there are fires that occur and
They do occur periodically in trucks that pick up something that somebody threw away.
Yeah.
Most of the time, those ones go to like our hauling company and they dump it on the wash rack, and fire department may or may not have to respond. This one that you're talking about was something a public customer had thrown away in our public area, and it had gotten up and the load had gotten tipped. And I believe, yeah, they pulled out the material and it had it extinguished, and then a while later, after we were closed, something else in that load must have caught fire as well.
So I just want to clarify, there's no means currently for people at Republic to contact the local fire department and let them know that they put out a fire or that they did things to take care of something during operating hours, so that the Adair Fire Department or whoever would cover the area would be aware that there was a fire.
That is not something we typically do currently if it's not needed, because I mean, those happen here and there. They're not typically something that
Once a
would be
month,
reported.
once a week, once a
No,
day.
once a year, once a year, maybe. I
So
don't know
not
the
a
exact
big
number.
burden
No, it's not
to
a,
notify the fire department.
yeah, I mean, it's something we could consider. I don't know. We'd have to talk through with them if that's something they're interested in.
Well, I tried to express that in condition 1 because I think anything that occurs during the normal operating hours seems to be being taken care of. Whether or not the rural fire department is called in is only if you need help, I would guess. But that's why I had condition 1, because I think during operations, things are fine.
Well, I mean, you raise a really good point, which is that, like, what is the protocol if they're, in the case where a fire is put out and then has the possibility of reigniting, like, maybe there should have been a Republic person on site at like that evening, just to make sure, or something like that. or-
Someone should have known that it was there. It shouldn't be somebody who's driving by on 99 that sees a fire or a plume of smoke. It should be someone from Republic or the fire department who supervises the area and just periodically takes a look to make sure nothing is happening. That's kind of a normal, if a fire department puts out a fire, and I think the fire marshal will probably be really helpful with this, is, that's kind of standard procedure to kind of look at the site again.
Mhm.
I've been putting out fires since I was a little Girl Scout.
Well, and Brett's not able to be here today, but because he's really more the operation side, so that was more familiar. But I believe the fire was put out an hour or so before we closed. So there were people there for quite some time afterwards. Similar.
Well, Jeff, may I break in, please? Is it okay with you guys? I think that's why I've got the 2 conditions. And in part, your point that, if there's a fire and it has a slowly burning embers later, it might erupt again is quite true, but that could be anywhere from hours to days. And so the conditions when the landfill is not in operation are the conditions we need to worry about. And, I'm not saying that there should be a person there 7/24 just to watch for fires. What was I had a discussion with the Adair rural fire person, and I think that if there's an observation of some type, just to ensure that there's not a fire after hours, that's fine, even if it might have started during hours, and then smoldered or people tried to put it out. I think they do their best efforts to put it out, but like was just pointed out, some people throw things away that are burning. I mean, and I don't think we can keep them from doing that. I think what we need to do is to be ready if something happens when the landfill is not operating.
Okay. So, David, again, I'm kind of hoping that you will continue to be the steward of this document. So you kind of heard the input, I think, about the language in condition 1. And I'm quite happy myself to just let you take it from here.
Well, I'm happy to make changes. It's just a matter of, if under condition 1, I'm just saying during the landfill period, like was just pointed out, since it was an hour after this event took place. Yeah, I don't know enough about exactly what the procedures are at the landfill on dealing with these things, but it sounds like everything you think was a fire goes someplace where it gets washed. But there's a lot of stuff in one of these containers, so I don't really know enough about that. There could be a change in that process, but even if there is a change, we still have the potential for something underneath that would then combust. And once it did that, then we're in condition 2 if the landfill is closed.
Well, I guess the issue I'm taking, the thing that I'm taking issue with is under your condition 1, David, you say that Republic has demonstrated themselves as effective means to discover and resolve any and all fire incidents. And so I'm just questioning those words, any and all, since one of the incidents we're looking at is where that situation was, as a matter of fact, not resolved and it reemerged. So
That's a good point.
I'll just leave it to you from there. I think.
I mean, I think we're splitting hairs here, as Ian pointed out. It's unknown whether that was a result of the first fire. There's still hot things from the hot load. I mean, a load can be pretty big, and dissecting a fire within the rubbish might be a little hard to do.
Well, what if I delete the any and all? We don't even know if the fire incident that occurred later was from that same stuff.
Right.
Except if the incidence is once a year, the odds are extremely high. That's due to that. I mean, just on odds, right? If it's once a year, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's once a year of the fire occurring after hours. Sounds like what I heard from Ian is they get hot loads all the time and deal with it. Well, I've seen a load out on 25th Street being extinguished.
Yeah, I'm talking about our hauling companies.
Yeah.
I mean, at the landfill, it's been years since there's been an after hours fire.
Okay.
So I don't even recall the year, but it's been probably 5 or 6 years. So that's the fairly rare condition.
Ian, how often do you think there's an actual fire at the landfill during operating hours?
That's the one. That's where Brett, he's the general manager. He's more on the operations side. He thought it was a couple times a year. There might be a hot load, and that may be because we keep a special place. So when one of our route trucks is out on route or driving around and they realize that they've got something hot in the truck, they'll go to the closest place to dump it out and extinguish it, whether that's back at the hauling yard or whether that's at the landfill where we have area on the liner where we can put it on an area of soil and then cover it up with additional soil to smother it. So it just varies depending on where that truck is coming from and what's the safest place for them to extinguish it.
The general manager reported when they have one in the truck en route, they're close to hatch up above and then run the compactor on it to snuff it.
Basically trying to smother the fire.
And then take it to the hot spot in the landfill and there they can extinguish it at that point.
I'm just thinking that, and this is probably something you guys discussed already, but I would think that the expertise of the people that work at the Republic Services at the landfill would be necessary after hours if there was a fire that the Adair Fire Department responded to. And I'm sure they've been in contact with each other, but it seems like you would need a Republic representative available, because how to put a fire, I would have no idea. I mean, I totally get like some of the things, but there's probably some nuance here that is.
Yeah, and that's part of it. I mean, they have all of our operations manager and supervisor, and both of those people were there.
Okay.
I mean, they both live in Monmouth. They were both there within like 10 minutes. And yes, we did talk through it a little bit in an earlier meeting, but they use the equipment to push this burning area out to the side where it could be smothered and extinguished with water. So yes, our people are definitely part of that process.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we should maybe like explain the stakes of involved in this, maybe a little bit more in the letter. David, you have a line in there saying that, you know, if there's a fire, it could potentially be catastrophic, but I wonder if we should maybe be a bit more specific to the board of what the consequences of a uncontrolled fire might be, or one that's not detected in a timely fashion.
That is.
Sure.
That is a good concept because, you know, we can describe it either as an operational fire or act of God, or, you know, so you can distinguish if it really is an operational first and then the consequences of it, because they used to use the fire torches that had one and then they changed those out. So that's been eliminated. So we should maybe put that resolution in there because somebody always remember those torch off things. So they've eliminated those. So now we're down to generally hot fire by 4th of July barbecue people, if you will.
As the cause.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking more
Yeah.
of like the potential impact if it's not detected in a timely fashion. Like I'm not entirely clear on what the consequences would be. Is it,
Yeah.
could there be a methane explosion? Could there, you know, is that a huge particulate release of like toxic particulates?
Yeah.
Igniting trees around the landfill and starting a wildfire? Like, I don't know what those things are, but
Yeah.
if they are notable, like that, you know, the journalism rule is in the story, always explain what the stakes are. Like, why do we care?
No, I understand because, you know, it depends what cell, how it's degrading and how much methane is in there. But yeah, I'll let the general manager defer to that. He's more articulate than I am.
So David H., did you catch all that? A bit more perhaps about the possible consequences?
Sure, I can write something up on the possible consequences. You know, like there was a comment about methane. And also about whether or not we could have a wildfire. I think we do need to remember that this is going to the commissioners or whatever. So we don't want to get too technically detailed, but we want to point out that it could be a pretty big fire in some way, you know, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, it would be, I mean, everybody talks about the fire from the 1994. It would be significantly smaller than that because of the use of daily cover that covers the waste with soil so that it can't combust. And that's one of the purposes of soil, so.
Yeah, they did talk about cutting the face square acreage down to 1/2 acre, where prior they were strung out all over the place. So you're really active within and 1/2 acre within a duration of hours there. So you've got it located right in that position.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to overstate it,
No.
you know?
Mhm.
It's just that having the word catastrophic in there without like further details is kind of like,
Yes,
I wonder what that actually means.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can produce a worst possible scenario if you want. You know, I'm good at that. I'm an engineer, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just I can try to describe a little bit more about this. I think the fire department's better at explaining what might happen than me, so I can ask if they want to say anything too.
Okay.
Okay, good. So hang on a second. Bailey's asking me a question.
I was gonna, just for the information of the committee, it will follow a similar process as the 2023. So when this document's been approved by the committee, from there I'll take it to the county administrator, and then from there she'll bring it to the commissioners.
Okay, great. So you checked on that? Are you revising?
I think that's the process. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Bailey. I had one other, just one word edit or whatever.
Sure.
And that is and I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly where in the document it is, but it says, for the extent of the Coffee landfill, I think it's in the actual,
It's at the bottom. Yeah, under suggestion.
at the bottom. You just had the word adjacent in there. I would just use the word area instead.
Okay, all area.
Yeah, and all area properties owned.
Okay, now I would want to mention one other thing. I was trying to make it a one pager just because I thought that would be more likely to be read.
Well, I think it's going to get read, David. But yeah, thank you for your goal of brevity. I think that's good.
So how should I proceed then? Should I make these adjustments and then send it back for the committee to look at, or what do you want to do?
I was about to ask the committee that. Britt, did you have a?
I was just going to say, can make a really small font if you want to keep it to a page.
Except for the word calamitous.
Indeed.
Make that bigger.
Just take it down half a point there, David.
Yeah, well, my eyesight's not that good, but I can try.
Yeah, so what does the committee want to do with this letter? Do you want to have David finalize it and send it along, or do you want to see it again next meeting? And maybe, David, I'll just ask you first. Would you be comfortable with finalizing this letter without anyone seeing it?
I'd be okay with it. Maybe the chair and vice chair might want to stare at it.
We could do that, I think.
Is that something that we can do outside of a committee meeting or?
I think with the approval of the committee that you could make any edits at that point. I don't know why not.
Yeah, we could certainly, I think, make a determination as to whether it adheres to what the committee talked about or whether it's gone off the rails.
Okay, all right.
Is there anyone who would like to see the letter again?
Yeah, I think we would.
Okay,
Okay,
so David, just go ahead and do your edits and then we'll bring it back to the committee next meeting.
okay. I'm going to give a suggestion and see if you like this. Where I'm talking about calamitous fires, maybe I should just have I could put it in a footnote if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also suggest that there be some mention that the people that showed up from our public services were there within 10 minutes and very responsive, and that's a piece of this. I think it's a collaborative effort to put the fire out. So
Sure.
that there's some recognition.
Yeah. I think that's the point.
Well, I got to know exactly what you mean by 10 minutes. Is it 10 minutes from the detection of the fire or 10 minutes from when the fire department was there? Yeah, I don't really know that little bit there.
Well, I mean, it's going to vary a little bit, but both of them live in the Monmouth area. So from the time they get called in, so.
From the time they get a call from the fire department.
Yeah.
Correct. Or
I'll
from-
just say that Republic personnel can be present within the time it takes to travel from Monmouth to the site as soon as they receive notification. That sound good?
Yeah.
And I just want to, reemphasize that really what the letter is about is creating a system which monitors the site when no one is there. Republic response time doesn't, it starts to become trivial if the fire is not detected and it's just growing. So that's really the concern that kind of started this whole inquiry, is that, people were recognizing that we're depending on passersby on 99W to call in fires.
Right.
And aren't better systems available. So that's really the recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, is to follow up on that. So I think have we finished with our fire inquiry document? Okay, very good. Thank you all for that. The next agenda item is take a 5-minute break. So we're back again at what? 7:11.
I think part of it is, especially, I live near.
Okay, everyone, recording is in progress. That means we're reassembling for agenda item number 7, the updated Coffin Butte landfill 2023 annual report. So let me give you all an update on what's happened regarding this guidance from us to the commissioners. So a bit of background, this landfill annual report came before us at our July meeting and then went on to the commissioners who did not accept it, but sent it back to Republic for some changes to be made. Republic has revised the annual report and it came before us again while on its way to the commissioners again. We discussed in meeting guidance to the commissioners to help them in the review of the updated annual report, and charged Rachel to summarize our guidance in a final document to accompany the landfill annual report. And the Board of Commissioners set a deadline of October 1st for that document. Rachel took ill, so I finalized that guidance for her and sent it to Bailey before the deadline. So where we are now is thanks committee. It was a task indeed to respond to the landfill annual report in the very short timeline we had, but I think we did well and captured the nuance of our remarks and made our guidance more readable and useful to the commissioners. You can find that guidance in its final form. It was in the updated packet that Bailey sent out earlier today. So some of you have seen that, I think. And I just want to confirm with you, Bailey, that the letter did go with the landfill annual report to the commissioner. Yes, thumbs up. Good on that.
Thanks for doing that, Ken. Are we expecting any kind of response from the board on this, or just kind of goes off into the?
I think it's just for them to use. Bill, I did want to ask you, can you attach, since it came in the late packet, can you attach the letter and all the late packet materials to the minutes for this meeting?
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay, good. And
Ken?
Yeah.
Can I ask this one question here? So
Yeah.
I was reading this and something caught my mind, or caught my eye on the high arsenic levels under the issues. It said that there are indications that the landfill's leachate is high in arsenic.
yes,
Don't they must have quality data from the leachate. I mean, is it high in arsenic or is it not?
That's the question, right? Sorry.
Well, no, I'm just gonna say all of that, as geologists, all of the annual reports have all of the data going back to.
Okay, so it's
the
all,
beginning of time.
yeah, I'm still digging through.
Yeah, no, you have. fun
Yeah, I
reading through
just saw it indicates that it indications that it may be or something, it wasn't clear that it was to me.
well,
And so I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole if it's.
no, it's a good question. I just want to clarify. I believe the annual report has arsenic levels in well testing,
But
but I don't think it has
leachate.
arsenic levels from leachate.
I saw the
testing.
groundwater quality data and I got that, but I did, it's a parenthetical in here actually under the first issue on arsenic.
What
That-
page are you on? Can I ask?
I'm reading what Bailey sent out. It's page 1 of 2
Okay,
of,
the back of our packet.
yeah.
So you're reading the final guidance, so the actual letter to the
I'm reading
commissioners.
the letter that you wrote, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
good day, commissioners. All right.
So I think the intention of the item was just to highlight that there were questions from the community about what qualifies as a natural background level of arsenic. So I think some of the testing indicated potentially high levels of arsenic, and the question is whether that's natural to the area.
I understand that for the groundwater.
Okay.
I just see this parenthetical. It
I
says,
see.
there are indications that the landfill's leachate is high in arsenic.
Right.
And so my question was the arsenic levels that are observed in groundwater coming from the leachate, or, and maybe this is kind of a stupid question maybe, or is it something that's naturally occurring that's being exacerbated because of redox conditions or something like that? So is it coming from the leachate or not, is my question. Or is it natural?
Well,
I mean, it seems like we just test the leachate and say, yeah, there's arsenic in there.
well, it's my, so
Is that such a stupid?
All of that data is in the annual report. Then
The leachate data is.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
leachate,
all right.
there's
I will go.
groundwater trends going back to at least the 90s. There's all sorts of information in that report.
Okay, so just, first time.
so I'm sorry, just,
I want to ask a question to complement that question. So correct me if I'm wrong, the wells are for on property. Do we have the surrounding area? Because it's the on-site property wells relative to the background. That's how you tease out that kind of thing. Is it a hotspot because of, well, the leachate, or is it the whole area, particular to geologic unit, soil unit, whatever, you can have arsenic, geogenic arsenic. But I think what I lack when I look at any of the chemical data is I see trends within wells, but I think the wells are just on site. So we can't see the background easily unless you can direct us to that point of a report. So we can see the relative background, and then you have the context. You go, oh yeah, that's background, because everybody's got, I don't know what I don't speak arsenic. Let's say it's 20 parts per million, which is very high, but if it's a hotspot there, you look at it in a spatial context. But if all the data is just from the footprint of landfill, it's hard to know just what's down gradient, or up gradient to, it just lacks spatial context, or at least I don't know where to look.
Yeah, so there's a couple pieces to that. So yes, the wells are all on our footprint because we don't install wells on, well, we have one on David Hackelman's property actually, but but they're largely on ours. And the way it works is you start monitoring in an area before landfilling takes place. And that's how you kind of establish your background, because you're monitoring the groundwater before a landfill cell was even there. So what you're seeing is what was there naturally. So most of the wells, if you look at them, at least on the newer portions, the early data is basically the background.
And that's not easily picked up from the report. So I mean, that makes sense. It's relative.
Yeah, and
to
it's just the way DEQ does their.
I know, but to your point, offsite monitoring wells are very commonly used for that's very.
And they don't have to be operated by you. It's just, where's the spatial context for this information? That question is for PFAS too, right? That, and I don't think those data were in the report, at least not that I can find it. And that might actually help us as well, because I think the question is, do you have refugee emissions? That's what everybody's interested in. That's the concern. Yeah, so how does one work through those very large reports and those data? If we, so that the thing about the arsenic, pinpointed back to the original time, if you have that context, that helps. But for contaminants that weren't monitored at the time the landfill is installed, that might not be as good a tool for understanding the trends.
so I would point you towards we received testimony from Joel Geyer, who's also a hydrogeologist. And so he's the one who has been, following, he's following several issues, but the arsenic issue. And so he has some data regarding the arsenic levels in Coffin Butte's leachate.
Okay.
So a couple things. The monitoring well network is part of an environmental monitoring plan that goes to DEQ for review and approval. So they have to approve where all of the wells are at. Another piece that we haven't done in a few years, but we used to have our geologist as part of our annual report come in and kind of just give a summary report, because the reports are technical because they're meant for a DEQ geologist. They're not meant for the general public to look at them and easily, they're written in very technical terms. So we would have them come in and kind of give a presentation for DSAC. It's been a few years since we've done that, but that might be something for next year's annual report that the group might find helpful.
That would be great.
Because I think it would allow us to understand, what the flow lines are, what the directions of discharge is, to what extent, if any, are residues making it into, I don't know whatever that's called, that goes into the former military base, that grading.
Camp
And also
Adair, right.
Adair, yeah, there's a water body there, and then there's that small creek on the other side, just kind of that hydrologic setting, you know, to just really appreciate, you know, where the wells are and what the backgrounds are. And that hydrologic analysis is huge. Like, yep, groundwater's moving in this direction unless it's, I don't know.
Yeah, and
Is there a strong seasonal component?
yeah, there's in that report, there's a contour map for our spring monitoring event and then our fall. So typically it's April, which is roughly highest groundwater table, and then October. And again, all of that's in the report, but if we'd like to next year, as part of that 2024 annual report, have them kind of come and give a high level presentation on some of this.
And if it was a redox thing, there should be other metals that are mobile as well. It shouldn't just be ours, right? It should be kind of a signature of reduced metals.
Manganese is in there too. I've seen this redox, you know, the high arsenic thing, having worked in the Willamette Valley for a long time, I know the issue, okay? And that's why I asked the question, is it a redox thing coming out of or is it coming from the leachate directly? That's why I asked.
Yeah,
And I don't want to take us down that rabbit hole. I'll read the report and be more educated next
the
time.
executive summary covers a lot of it, and then there's much more detail in the body of the report, as well as all the data.
So Bailey, can you take a note for us to request a report from the geologist when the 2024 landfill annual report rolls around? That would be great.
Yeah, I made that note. I think David may have something.
And
Yeah, I was going to point out that there is some information from the USGS about arsenic in the Willamette Valley, and it is, in some cases, the groundwater is higher than recommended drinking water. So, you know, I think the geologist can point that out.
And I would just clarify, they didn't do a report necessarily. It was just a kind of a PowerPoint presentation to review the data with DSAC versus another report on top of a report.
You don't need to do that.
No, that was just a suggestion though, is they could.
Yeah, I think being available to answer questions would be valuable for this group. So to bring it back to this particular letter, we don't really have an action item on it because it's already gone.
Okay.
You know, we can have action items, which would be to do some sort of addendum, but the last I heard, the Board of Commissioners will be reviewing the updated 2023 landfill annual report at their meeting on Tuesday, October 15th. So if anyone on the committee or the public would like to comment on it, supply further information or ask further questions, whatever, that would be your opportunity, is during the public comment period. Like I said, the deadline for supplying written material for the commissioners to look at has already passed. That passed on October 1st.
Okay.
So this letter made it.
Okay.
But now it's live testimony is what's going on. So there's no further action necessary. Are there any more questions about this? This guidance, I should call it, to the commissioners? Okay. Let's move on then to agenda item 8, which is the 2022 Community Concerns Annual Report. We have the staff draft to be finalized. So does anyone, do people have a chance to read that over? Does anyone have comments?
I have a couple of extra copies.
I'll take one.
Apologize, I think the comment, you know, I didn't include anyone else.
this,
Comments from anyone?
and our
So again, to no one's surprise, I have a few. So first of all, I really like the the addition of the pie chart on the cover that has not featured into, and that was a nice little summary about what the salient community member concerns are. Then the paragraph on the first page, the fourth paragraph, which starts the number of complaints in 2021 and 2022. I have issues with that paragraph. It kind of seems like there's some explanation needed for the number of complaints. And it says that it's significantly higher than in previous years. I don't think that's substantiated. So
I just have a question.
yeah, go
Did we
ahead.
not approve this last time?
No, we haven't seen this before.
That was
That was
2021.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Indeed,
About a year behind with everything. Sorry.
very good.
So are the reports.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think it's appropriate essentially to kind of make this assumption that it's significantly higher than in previous years. First of all, I'm not sure that that's salient to DEQ, but I don't have that data. I have no idea how many complaints were submitted by community members in the year 2019 or 2018, or I've not seen any of the community concerns annual reports for those years. I have no idea what that information is.
I can research that.
Okay. But in the meantime, I just don't think that we need that explanation. What I would do is I would replace the fourth paragraph with this, something like this. During 2022, Republic Services withdrew their 2021 land use application to expand Coffin Butte landfill, parentheses, March, close parentheses, and Benton County started a community engagement process about the landfill called Benton County Talks Trash, parentheses, September, close parentheses, period. So, what that paragraph does is it mentioned those two events, which I think is indeed legit. I'm not sure that DEQ needs to know about that either, but it does kind of explain what they'll be reading further on. And then I just had a question about there's the graph of the total vehicles per year to Coffin Butte landfill. I just don't have any context for that graph. I don't know why it's there. So, I mean, I would just take it out unless, and I'm not sure exactly what context we might have had in mind.
I second that. When I looked at this too, I thought the pie chart was great. Then I saw that. And I didn't even see where table 1 was called out in the text. Maybe it is, but I didn't get it either. I mean, it was kind of interesting, but it was never explained.
Right, yeah.
I don't think either figure is cited because there's only one page of text.
So,
I mean, it's kind of standalone, makes explanatory, but a couple sentences like from all these comments, keywords were summarized and we came up with this distribution of comments. So just I don't know, kind of like what you're looking at. It just comes, shuts out of the blue and there's no figure 1, figure 2, but figure 2 there's really no context for understanding or appreciating the significance of why it's a report.
Right. I mean, it would kind of give the impression that traffic volume was a significant component of the community concerns, which I don't think is true. So.
Well, I'm trying to understand your concern about this paragraph 4, as you pointed out. You typically, when there's action on a piece of property, there's more attention to it, which does generate more comments, complaints, concerns, if you will. Especially with social media and people rallying their neighbors, well, this is what's going on. And yeah, a conditional use permit does bring people, I mean, to voice their concerns. So if you're saying there's no evidence to that, I mean, I think it's glaring evidence that when you see a spike in comments, it's usually around an activity or permit application.
Right, but we're not seeing a spike in activity. That's just it. There's no other data to go from. There isn't a 2019
Oh, I got it.
community concerns annual report, nor a 2018, or that anyone has been able to find.
And it could be that it's related to variables that are not captured here, like total tonnage incoming, or it could be related that that's somewhat vehicles is trying to tell you like, oh, there's X more traffic, bringing more material. But the reader's kind of left to guess like what this significance is. So but it could turn out that the complaints are indeed higher. And I think and if that's true, then it's kind of normal to seek, I had the same impression. It wouldn't be completely out of line that bringing attention to this would cause a number of more attention being played, a number of complaints going up. So I don't know if it's an attempt, I read it as someone's trying to speculate on why the complaints are up. And I think that is one of the plausible explanations. Or these issues are up because the total flow is up, the trap and the parameters that would tell you that were tonnage or number of deliveries or whatever you would do. But if you're going to connect the dots, I think you have to connect them thoroughly, or say where you can't find a plausible explanation.
Yeah, so I think that's really well said. You know, even if there were more comments, then you could show it on those particular years. Speculating on what the causes were, I mean, why are we even doing that? So that's why I say it's really unsubstantiated.
But it's not an implausible, I mean, to me, it's a rational, reasonable argument. Is it the answer? I don't know that, but it is a.
My question is, sorry, my point is, why are we even going down this road? It's not our job to provide an explanation for the comments. Our job is really just to provide the comments.
Oh, I didn't know our mission was that clearly defined. I mean, somewhat makes sense. You present some data and you have some comments on like, what do you see? What are the trends? What could explain it? So if there's no precedent for that, okay, that's fine. But to just go, well, here's comments and then have nothing, and that might be kind of odd too. But I don't know what the actual charge is. Is it just really a summary, but no attempt to integrate and explain? No.
Well, I think, so I think that's a good question. I mean, my own attitude, if you will, is that an annual report for a year should really focus on that year, you know, rather than looking at other years.
Well, except it's a year in context. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have annual reports, you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like revenue. I mean, that's a simple one for corporations. We're down this month and they're looking at last year. So, I mean, you can substitute it back in to put context to it.
Right, this isn't revenue.
No, I understand, but the point is, it's an example of usually everybody's sensitive about revenue, but it's everything else that goes with that, whether it is tons related to vehicles related to tonnage going in to get an average tonnage per vehicle. I mean, there's all rationale. It's just a matter of putting it in context.
Probably for analysis of these results.
Which results?
Of the results for the year. So for example, there is the pie chart, which is indeed an analysis of the results for the year 2022.
Well, I mean.
I'm sorry, I think I've taken us down some rabbit hole.
No.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, I do think that if we're saying, you know, there are 64 complaints, I think it makes sense if that's an anomalous number to point it out. But it sounds like we just don't know. We don't know if it's an anomalous number or not.
It sounds like the data might be available.
Yeah. I mean, if we can dig it up, that might be interesting. And I could potentially see like a chart in there that shows what it's been, how many complaints we've gotten over the last 5 years or whatever. And then we could speculate as to the
total
cause.
mass is going up and the complaints go up and bloop like that. It's not related to the total mass. You know what I mean? It's something else.
Yeah.
Could be social media, could be
Yeah,
whatever.
and we would have to say in the letter, like, we cannot say for certain why the number has increased.
Or
It
it's
could be X or Y or Z.
consistent with,
Yeah.
the loading is up and the number, and as evidenced by traffic, tonnage, whatever. If someone's just trying to make sense out of the data and give it some context, that's all I read into it.
I had a couple of really small things. Bailey,
Yeah.
did you put this together?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So the cover letter says 64 complaints, but I think there are only like 59 in the table. The first column, the formatting is really funky. So you have like 27 with a 2 and then a 7 underneath it. At least in my PDF. I don't know if everyone else is seeing it. On the first column in the table, there's just not enough space for the numbers over single digits, so they're presenting as vertical numbers.
A column with.
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
yeah, I see that.
And then for the rightmost column, where we talk about the response, like, I don't know, maybe he knows who these people are, but I don't know who Wilson Wade and Karen White Fallon are. And I think in some cases, the box says, has like a first person in there, like I contacted the facility and I don't know who I is. So maybe we can kind of standardize how we present those.
It
Yeah,
raises my concern that some of this is like, some of the complaints will be overly valued because they're all on this table, and then others are kind of a combined thing. So you really don't have a good sense of, if this is going to the commission, it seems like it's.
Which ones are you referring to? The ones that are in the combined form?
The ones that are on the table.
Table 2.
Table 2, I mean, some of it is like, it's like the whole committee. Benton County Talks Trash Solid Waste Work Group process. Their combined information is like, we had lots of concerns. Full report and detailed concerns can be found here, and they have like a separate thing. And it's like, oh, this is on top of everything else. I don't know. It just seems like it's not very well summarized in some way.
So I had, I support what Rachel said. What the last column is about is what was the landfill operator's response to this concern. And so, some of these, appear to be just notes about what, and it's not always clear as to who is being operated, but it's not, there's nothing in there about what the landfill's response, if any, was. There should be, typically, I think in other years, it's been, that the landfill has contacted or, or no response, or.
I don't know that we even saw most of those at the time, so.
Yeah, so part of, I think.
No, I was gonna say, I don't know that we were even contacted on a lot of this, but that was prior to Bailey's time, so it's gonna be a little challenging to piece that together.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, last year's, the 2021 report, that last column was just titled response, and it wasn't.
It was the county's response, I
Yeah.
believe.
Oh, county's response. So we
Yeah,
could just
that's right.
generically call it response to capture whatever happened instead of trying to put it all on Republic.
Right, well, I think part of what DEQ wants to know is, did Republic hear about this concern if it didn't actually come to them?
Right.
So. And if they did, if it did come to them, what did they do?
Do we have any way of tracking down that information? That sounds really difficult.
Well, some of these talk about it, but others apparently not, because it's replied to unknown, or.
I mean, I guess
not reported.
in the cases where the response was, we talked to Republic, I would imagine we could. Yeah, I mean, there are some, like, I think so number 55, right? Like, sent the complaint details to Republic Services asking for investigation and follow up for resolution in order to prevent this from reoccurring. It was for a truck that was releasing trash along Campadere Road.
Right.
But
It doesn't say who they contacted.
it doesn't say, right, yeah.
There's no details that make it very difficult to.
But I mean, if our remit for this report is just like capturing community concerns, like, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for us to devote a lot of time doing like investigative work, figuring out like what happened to those concerns, right? That might be a little out of the scope for us.
So I think that we need to do the best that was the attitude with the 2021 is, what's the best we can do? But kind of as we noted back then, also, it's difficult. If there are a whole list of concerns, you can't itemize what the response was for each one. So I think it's maybe we can just visualize is, where does the trail end about this particular complaint? So like the one you were talking about, the trail ends where Benton County sent it to Republic, and then that's where the trail ends. Unless Republic picks it up and says, yeah, and then we did such and such. I agree that it's a lot of detective work if it isn't built into the comments. And that's certainly an area which we can look at for improvement, in the future. It's not going to help us much with this report, I don't think. I also wanted to just also comment on what Charlene said. That particular, we have all these itemized reports, and then the one labeled 59, is indeed this aggregation of an unknown number of comments were received by Benton County Talks Trash, and they covered a number of issues. It's a sort of aggregation, which a little bit of historical fact is that important historic information about this is that DSAC was prevented from receiving community concerns at the time when Benton County Talks Trash was convened. So if you look at, like, for example, the minutes of the DSAC meetings, there is no public comment period. And that's because the commissioner said, we want all the landfill business to go through Benton County Talks Trash. So essentially our responsibility for, I'm talking.
No.
I'm talking here.
I understand, but I just have a point of inquiry. Benton County stated they wanted one table, and that being Benton County Talks Trash, so everything would be channeled in there, not on merit, but to recognize it. So I'm just saying that that statement is not quite factual.
The statement is factual. So, I was chair at the time. I mean, I was told essentially what I could have on DSAC committee agendas and what I couldn't. One thing that we could not have is we could not have public comment. And the reason was one table, those public comments went to Benton County Talks Trash. Right. And you can see them in the meeting minutes for Benton County Talks Trash. People were bringing their comments about the landfill to Benton County Talks Trash. So there's really no reason to treat those comments any different from comments that DSAC had received. Because Benton County Talks Trash was essentially filling in for DSAC during that period.
So when you say treat them different, meaning you mean line item 59 says go to this website to see these comments. So you say treating them different, meaning they are not summarized in this report?
So they don't appear in this report, but also if someone came to DSAC during that, if someone came to DSAC and made a complaint, they get a row in this chart
Okay.
like these people do. So it's unclear why the 40, 50 people which have their comments aggregated in row 59 have their comments aggregated.
Oh, Charlie, I totally missed that. Thank you. for flagging that.
Just what?
Yeah,
It's gonna mess with your stats. In other words, your pie chart, I
yeah,
don't know how the entry for 59 would be entered into that. Because it's an aggregate of many things.
yeah, there should be like
Exactly.
100 complaints, right? Not,
So yeah, it would change the total number
yeah.
significantly.
So someone who gave their public testimony to Benton County Talks Trash the way they were directed to, looks at this report and says, why am I in 59? When if I had come to DSAC, I would have my own row. I don't have a good explanation or answer for that.
Question, because I'm, so new to this board.
Yeah.
Has this issue been remedied such that if complaints are issued now, are they being captured in a centralized way and handled in a systematic way? Or is there other aggregation opportunities still happening today? Or is this kind of like, this is the way it was back in 2022, 23? Is this old news or is it current news? Because sometimes history tells you maybe what you could do differently. So is it different now? And are individuals captured or is there aggregation still going on?
So there isn't any aggregation in the report collection, the concerns collection. So people send in a letter or they testify at a meeting, and that's an individual entry for them. So the aggregation is happening. Bailey did the aggregation when he created this row 59.
You're asking who collects everything?
Today, in the current situation, is it a combination like it was then? It's individuals or let's see, DSAC or Benton County? So there's two groups getting input at some
I
point.
see. I think I misunderstood.
Versus now,
your
is there
question.
only just one group getting it? So
Well,
it's easier to tabulate and track and
It
summarize?
always has been a number of groups get it. So Republic reports on the concerns which they get. Benton County staff report on the concerns that they get. And then DSAC reports on the concerns that we receive. And if the Board of Commissioners receive concerns, we should be getting those from
So
staff
is our
also.
charge to summarize everything or only what this committee gets? In these
I'm sorry?
So is the charge with regard to annual reports only what this committee gets, or are we charged with aggregate or assembling all comments?
We're charged with assembling them all.
Okay.
So the ones from DEQ as well.
Yes, I'm sorry, DEQ also submits.
Because it does say who got it. I mean, there's
Yes.
Benton County Talks Trash, there's DEQ, SWAC, and what SWAC is, but it does identify. Okay, so this is a summary.
So
And
I
one entry
think
is
the
a
point is
fact.
line item 59, there could be 40 or 50 comments.
Exactly.
That's
It
the bottom
could be a
line.
lot because there's 1,099 pages in that PDF. I just want you guys to know that because I'm looking at the PDF right now.
Wow. That's a
I'm
lot of
like
pages.
trying to get to where there's like a list of complaints and it's like, my God, this is so long. It's like 1,099 pages. That is
So who
big.
wants to go through
Who's gonna
1,099?
read that? That's a fucking book.
What's the process for, I mean, that's a big job. I mean, I'm just listening to all of this. It's all what a poor Bailey over here
Oh, that's
He
ridiculous.
does it all. It's a huge job.
Or is the point to point out that that exists and it's the way it is unless something else happens, but it's to catch that nuance. For anybody who is reading this, they can be aware of that, then draw conclusions or rebuttals or whatever, but I don't think anyone's
So I've
asking.
already
to go back.
looked through what's in the Benton County Talks Trash. And so there are indeed comments, and I would say there are 40 to 50 of them, in the 12 or 13 meetings that Benton County Talks Trash had. And so they're all listed, what people did, what their comments were, that's all summarized in the minutes there. So it's a very approachable project.
1,000 pages of comments.
Well, yeah, it's not 1,000 pages of comments. I mean, that's the entire report, but I certainly agree that it's
That's a lot.
intimidating to call up that PDF and begin to flip through it because it's difficult to find things. But if we put in the term comment into the search engine, then they pop up fairly
So
readily.
what do you want to do about that? Do you want to request that those 40-50 be brought to the light of day and then reanalyze this pie chart? Is that?
That's what I would like to request. And so again, just a little bit of history. This ain't nothing compared to the 2021 Community Concerns Annual Report, which had almost 300 community concerns expressed in various places. And so back then, this is Bailey's predecessor. He did refuse essentially to analyze those. And so those went over to the committee and then the committee did them. So basically I spearheaded that effort. But we did indeed itemize them, each one, you know, like appears for the rest of them here. So I think that if the committee wants to, they just request Bailey to break out those complaints so as to be consistent.
I mean, I guess, you know, I have to ask myself on that. Looking at that line item, one can, the curiosity tells me go back and browse it and read it and see if there's any gold nuggets in there, but.
I'm not kidding. It's 1,100
I
pages
mean, when
long.
I have to,
That is
when I have to
ridiculous.
dig through data in the evening on my own time, I can tell you there's a lot of empty brown bottles on my desk afterwards.
I mean, I think from like if we put our, you know, this goes to DEQ, right? Or sorry, it's to the EPA.
Yeah, to DEQ.
I mean, whoever gets this reported at DEQ, if they're not going to go down the rabbit hole, like, you know, they probably will read item 59 and just be like, all right, there was that thing.
I mean, the pie charts kind of tells it all, okay?
But the pie chart's
The
based
pie
on.
chart doesn't
It's not
include- it
accurate.
doesn't include
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So I mean, this you can, I mean, how much time are we, you know, if you want the pie chart to be updated, if we think that's important, I mean, one can go through the comments or specifically in a certain page in the report, or if there's 1,099 pages to dig through, do we care enough to dig through 1,099 pages?
Well, I think what Ken was saying is that you don't have to dig through that
Okay.
many
You
pages.
don't.
Yeah, it's all in the comments.
I'm sorry, we seem to have jumped ahead here. I think that's the phase we're at is, I think that for us to produce a quality report along the lines of what we are supposed to produce, we want to ask Bailey that the concerns which are aggregated in row 59 should be broken out. And then that's all we need to do. And then if Bailey can do that, then that's fine. The document comes back to us with those broken out. The pie chart gets updated and, you know, and off we go.
So when you say broken out, they're going to how many different variables there?
These guys, it's already been created bins unless there's something unique in there.
There.
It would probably populate that.
So why not, can you just put one there in their BCCT and say X amount, and then they can go deeper if they want in the graph, if that's what the final analysis is.
So it's a question of fairness. Why are these people in BCTT being aggregated, whereas other people are not?
Oh, what the topic was the end product was the graph, if I understood everything. And it's a matter of getting a value at the graph, and the BCCT is holder of that amount. So if you say there's 500X in here, whatever it is, then if anybody wants to go deeper, they can go deeper instead of breaking it out. And I'm not sure. That's a lot of data just for Bailey to break out, where it's been directed to BCCT and that's the placeholder for the data, is it not? So why not just say BCCT? And it's just a temporary thing, just during that process. We're back to this, but just for that, I say, put the value for BCCT, put it on the graph, and then put the pointer to going to the data, if you wish.
Again, for me, it's an issue of fairness.
It is fair. You've got it. The data's there.
Well, it isn't.
Mind if I butt in here?
Yeah, please do.
I think there may already be a spreadsheet in the BCCT that has the data in it. If there is, it's pretty easy to add it.
Yes, so I've actually, I've actually looked at what's in the BCTT report, and that is, it's information much like this, individual entries. There's someone who made a comment, it tells what their comment is, it tells what meeting they made it at, et cetera. So all that information just needs to be taken from the BCTT report and put into the same format as this. That's all that needs to happen.
It sounds like we need a programmer.
Let me ask
It sounds to me like everybody's kind of like, just because this report's got like 1,000 pages in it, there's a concern that there's 1,000 things to do when it sounds like there's more like maybe 50.
That's correct.
I guess I'd also like, what precedent do you want to set? This is a 2022 report. We still have 2023 and 2024 staring at us. So do we have, okay, so if you want to establish, like, let's pretend everything gets laid down here, then hopefully if that would be true, we would do that in 2023. Or if we allow aggregates here, then we would allow aggregates there. I think it'd be beautiful to have kind of like continuity, dependability, like for people who care about that kind of stuff, like this is how it's done. So you are kind of, I think maybe it's an opportunity to set precedent here. Let me ask, because I didn't do it in detail, the 2021 report that was approved, did it have a combination of individual and aggregate or only individual?
Just individual.
Well, then it
Just
sounds like
individual.
precedent might have been set in 2021. And if you want to choose to follow precedent, then that 21 report might show the path forward, but also tells us about what 2023 should be like. If we're kind of setting up a rubric of reporting and we're going to be consistent.
Right, and 2021 basically followed the same format as 2020. So there has been a precedent set.
So there is some precedent for that. Okay, so if the committee wants to be consistent and follow precedent, it kind of tells us what to do.
Yeah.
I just have a question. So, many questions. So the BCCT, whatever, BCTT, whatever, they were meeting from what year to what year?
They started in September of 2022 and ended in May of 2023.
But their summary is from April 2023.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the link on the table doesn't work, so why don't we get that fixed first?
Okay.
On line item 59, the link to the PDF, I just get defaulted back to the county webpage.
Yeah.
Is there any chance we could find some resolution here? It is 10 after 8. I may be so bold as to look at the clock.
Indeed.
You just say the 3 months that were at the end of 2022, there was meeting that was happening, and it's included in the 2023
Well,
thing, because this is
2023 is 2023.
right.
So.
So I'm just saying that the BCTT didn't start till September of 2022, you said.
Right.
So there's only 3 months, basically, at the end of the year of 2022, where they received complaints that are not going to be in 2022. So just say that there's 3 months of, we don't have data for that from them. To pull that out just from those 3 months would be very difficult, would it not?
No. So that's what I'm trying to say. The information is available in the BCTT report, pretty much right in this format, in the minutes. So in the minutes of the report, it says, so-and-so had
Complains
comments
of
about
this.
such and such.
So you're just
on this
asking
day.
for that to be imported to this report, okay?
That's all, that's what I'm trying to
Okay.
say. I'm sorry if I haven't.
So do we just need to look at it again next month?
But we
Yeah.
need to ask Bailey to,
Well,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, having not looked at the BCTT real recently, I don't remember where they fall, where those comments are. If they're easy to pick out, I can hopefully get it by the next meeting. I'll make a commitment to have it by the January meeting, if it's gonna be real time consuming.
Okay, is that good with everyone?
that's great.
Yes.
Means make that pie chart look even cooler.
Exactly.
But the size won't change. The size and number. It'll still be.
No, it has to get bigger in diameter, doesn't it?
Percentages, right.
Okay,
But you could put N number of total responses and you're like, oh, it's, I don't know, it's 59 now to 134 or whatever it is.
okay, so sorry that dragged on, but, okay. So Bailey, you are clear with what needs to happen next with this. So appreciate all your effort on that. I'm sorry we kind of jumped to the negative stuff to begin with. So it's obvious that it took quite a bit of digging to assemble what is here. So, and thank you for that. And again, thanks for the pie chart. I think a little explanation underneath it as to what the pie chart is exactly. I think that was a good suggestion also. But we'll look at this document again when it's ready, and so that will all be good. We can make those comments at that time. Okay, let's move on forthrightly to agenda item number 10, which is request agenda items and staff requests for the next meeting. So David Heckelman, I know that you have requested already that we make an inquiry also about the security at the landfill.
Yes, if possible, I'd like to have an idea of the security. There's my major question for that is just because I value the workers and I want to make sure that they aren't walking into surprises. Security is pretty simple to deal with, and it may already be just fine. I'm just curious and want to ensure that we're not leaving a place that's subject to some vandalism. And in part, it's related to the fact that several years ago, I did get some vandalism on my building on the hilltop. And I'm pretty confident that the source came from somebody coming up from the south side of the hill.
So from the landfill side. Okay.
Well, yeah, but I don't know if they came up the landfill side or if they walked the fence along the top ridge. They could have done anything like that, but I'm a little bit of I have been a tracker in the past, and I didn't see any tracks any other direction in the grass. So I don't know for sure that that's how they did it, but I do know that if they can get up to my place up there, they might not be nice to the material and property of the landfill site, which then workers walk into when they start their job every morning.
Okay. So I just wanted, I know you had brought that forward last time, but we couldn't get it on the agenda for this one. So hopefully it will appear on the agenda for our next meeting. So Ian, I just want to remind you that by state law, DSAC is to be notified when the landfill intends to file for any change to any permit. So, in particular, DSAC should be notified and get a copy when the conditional use permit gets resubmitted.
Yeah, the county will have all of that, so.
Yeah. but we would like to get it too, so.
Takes a lot of motivation for someone to walk through a landfill in their spare time.
Especially when I left on one side, I'm pretty sure they came up E.E. Wilson side through that parking lot.
Well,
Yeah.
they very well could have, but I am trying to point out that this site has a little bit of contention throughout the county, and I don't want people to create issues for personnel that work there. That wouldn't be good.
Nope. Okay, noted. Let's see, I have a couple of things. So first of all, the EPA put out a couple of enforcement alerts for municipal solid waste landfills on September 25th. There's one which is municipal solid waste landfills are failing to properly conduct compliant monitoring and maintenance of gas collection and control systems. And there was another one, municipal solid waste landfills are failing to include waste from total degradable waste in place and properly sample landfill gas, resulting in underreported emissions. So I just want to bring those to the attention of the committee. I think that I don't have data, we don't have time really to talk about that now, but I think that would be a good subject for us to just look into. I'll do some research, and I just want to alert others that there are the enforcement alerts from EPA on September 25th, which pertain to this landfill. And then there's also going to be an EPA hearing on using remote sensing for landfills. So carbon mapper, that's happening at the EPA, and that's happening later on this month. So I'd like to get that on the agenda as well for our November meeting.
When you say the EPA, local EPA or on the national level?
Pardon me?
When you say at the EPA, you talking local EPA or at the national level?
National.
Those are national things.
Yeah, these are all. And then, and that's all I have for additional agenda items. Does anyone else have any?
I guess I have maybe questions that might be agenda. So in our packet, we had a PFAS gasification, but it seems to be for sanitary sludge. So that's really biosolids, right? Is that why it's in here? And then it's in our packet because like it's being proposed and the slag would end up in the landfill, or why are we getting this? Is it somebody's agenda item?
It was there's been more and more questions on PFAS, and I look upstream and downstream, and upstream says there's leachates going out of the landfill into the sanitary sewer, and the sanitary sewer says they process that, and they process it in decomposition. So what I'm noticing is there a technology that can stop the PFAS before it goes into the Willamette water or stuff like that? So I just didn't know if this technology, one of the manufacturers just come out and says, yes, we can process the PFAS through it. So then I looked at what was coming out of the landfill for the tonnage, if that machine can do it. So it's just a matter of the concept right now and to look at the aggregate if it's possible.
But I think this is it's a biosolids treatment. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and so biosolids can go to the landfill. I'm just not sure what the context is. You're just
Well,
interested in general?
Yeah, well, if the content, if they're going up there, and you've got a technology that can process it, why not divert it to that? That's what I'm saying. So the landfill doesn't necessarily has to be the end point. The end point might be into a refueling system. It's this. So it stops that.
We're running over.
Oh, yeah, that's
I really
okay.
wanna just focus things. So to answer your question, Jennifer, there has been no agenda item proposed regarding that. That was a.
Okay, so I guess my agenda item then would be, I'd be interested in the PFAS data. Where does it come from? Is it especially the wells? And then outside of perimeter, in perimeter, it's nice to have another hydrogeologist on there. And then what the leachate is. And it's just really you know, arsenic is ambiguous because it's also a geogenic source in the area potentially. But the PFASs aren't. They come from, you know, there's not much else going out on that side of town, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd just be kind of curious what that footprint is, what the data are. You're interested as well, and because it came up, now it's come up in this context.
Okay, so that's very good. So we'll PFAS as an agenda item. Can you write me a little summary about, can you write me a little summary of those questions?
Sure.
And just send it to me so I can include it on the agenda for,
Yeah, I guess it would be a request for Republic Services to present leachate groundwater data. And then I know the PRC is also a disposal site, and I know there's some discussion about what's being diverted away. But there's also data that says that's not complete in terms of diversion.
Just like assuming that it'll take Republic a little time to get all this stuff together.
Well, I mean, just full transparency, DEQ doesn't require PFAS monitoring on groundwater wells, so there is not data to report on.
Oh, okay. There you go. But what other conservative tracers are there? I mean, high salinity.
Well, I'm interested. I want to look, I'll track down that leachate data to see what other tracers,
Well, even
mobile
just
tracers are
chloride.
out there. Just
Even chloride.
Chloride,
Nitrogen.
VOCs, SVOCs,
Something that's not biologically labile.
Right.
I
so I
wonder,
really want to get to the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
I was just gonna say, like, if the interest is in leachate, since we discussed earlier, talking about, you had
Arsenic.
questions about arsenic and leachate, maybe it's all together, like, maybe not a month from now, but like some presentation on just leachate, the disposition of leachate.
Yeah, and I would suggest next year as part of the annual report, but
So the chair,
Do a deeper dive into leachate, flow pass, monitoring well depths, the whole thing. Yeah.
the chair is open very much to taking this conversation offline. And so, you know, if there was an agenda item that you come up with, just send it to me and we'll see if we can include it. And then
Thank you.
in the next report. Okay,
I moved,
let's move on to agenda item 11.
I moved to adjourn.
Rachel moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Yes.
Charlene is going to second that. All in favor? Lee, yes. Thank you very much, all of you, for sticking out.